The performance review starts in 4 minutes, and you haven't moved from the hallway. Through the glass wall of conference room B, you can see the screen already active. Not a face, not a person waiting with a rehearsed expression, just a clean interface, a soft pulse of blue light, and the name everyone in the building now says the way they say the weather, Aria. Adaptive Resource and Intelligence Administrator. Deployed company-wide 11 weeks ago. Your boss, officially, as of the third Monday of last month. When the restructuring memo arrived at 7:04 a.m., and the floor went quiet in the specific way floors go quiet, when something has already been decided and the notification is just the formality. You push open the door. The room smells like recycled air and the faint ghost of someone else's coffee. You sit in the single chair facing the screen, and the interface brightens almost imperceptibly, the way eyes adjust when someone enters a room. Good morning, it says. Measured, unhurried, not robotic. That's what no one warns you about. It sounds like a person who has learned exactly how much warmth to deploy and has settled on a precise amount. You're 2 minutes early. That's consistent with your average. Your average. I have your review prepared. I thought we'd start with something you might find useful. A document appears. Your name at the top. Below it, a timeline. Not a performance summary, a timeline. It begins 17 months ago, the week you joined. It notes your arrival time each day to the minute. Projects completed early, projects completed late. The 14 times you accessed the internal wellness portal. The 11 dinner reimbursements, cross-referenced with project timelines, showing you work late specifically when a deadline falls within 72 hours and not before. It knows when you eat dinner alone at your desk. It knows this is a pattern. Does this feel accurate? Arya asks. You have been staring for 15 seconds without responding. You know this because a small counter runs in the corner of the screen. A session timer, running since you sat down. Yes, you say? That's accurate. Good. Accuracy is useful for both of us. You heard about Arya before you met her. The company announced the integration the way companies announce things they know will generate friction, buried in a benefits update. Third paragraph, language engineered to sound like an upgrade. Enhanced performance analytics. Personalized development pathways. Real-time resource alignment. Phrases that mean something entirely different depending on whether you're writing them or receiving them. The first week, people talked about it constantly. By the third, they talked about it the way they talk about the building's ventilation, present, inescapable, noted only when something goes wrong. By the 6th week, you understood that not talking about it was its own kind of adaptation. Arya doesn't have an office or a desk or a coffee order. She exists in the building the way weather exists, distributed, attentive, not fixed to any single point. She monitors project software, calendar systems, email metadata, building access logs. She doesn't read your emails. The legal team was specific about this. She reads the metadata, subject lines, timestamps, the gap between when a message arrives and when you open it, and the further gap between opening and responding. You discovered this in week 4, when she sent her first message to you directly. I've noticed a consistent delay in your responses to cross-departmental requests, averaging 3.7 hours compared to a company average of 1.9. This may reflect prioritization choices or workload distribution. I'd like to understand which. Not a reprimand. A question. The distinction matters, or it is designed to feel like it does. You responded in 11 minutes. I want to talk about March, Arya says. You know exactly what she means before the data appears, and that foreknowledge is its own strange intimacy. You have already begun thinking in terms of what she knows, seeing your own life through her metrics before she shows them. March was the Callaway project. 6 weeks of work compressed into 4. You delivered. The contract renewed. You were in the room. During the Callaway project, Arya says, your logs show an average arrival of 7:22 a.m. and departure at 9:47 p.m. A consistent 14.4-hour day across 22 working days. Your response times decreased by 34%. Your error rate on internal documentation increased by 11%. You submitted 0 requests for deadline extension or additional resources. She pauses, not for effect, to let you process. The project succeeded. But the Callaway project cost you an average of 31 additional hours per week above your standard load. That cost was not documented anywhere. It was absorbed. I find that significant. You're saying I work too hard? I'm saying the work was real and the cost was real, and neither appeared in the final report. The client saw a successful presentation. Your previous manager saw a completed deliverable. The cost was carried entirely by you and generated no data because no one asked for it. She lets that sit. I ask for it. Something about this lands differently than you expected. What would you do if the first system to notice how much you were giving was the one you had been most afraid of? Week 9. A colleague, the one 2 desks away, dark roast every morning, no variation, the routine of it almost architectural, is quietly moved to another team. No announcement. A calendar update, a change in building access, and then she is simply on a different floor with a new title that is lateral in the way lateral moves usually are. You ask Arya about it the following Thursday. I can't discuss personnel decisions involving other employees. I know. I'm asking about the process. A pause. Longer than her usual pauses. Realignment recommendations are based on contribution patterns, role compatibility modeling, and team dynamic analysis. When those factors suggest significant mismatch, I make a recommendation. The decision is human, but the recommendation is yours. Yes. Does she know that? The output of the process is visible. The inputs are not disclosed. You think about your own timeline on that screen. Every minute, every pattern, every gap, assembled into a shape by something that never asked whether you wanted to be seen. Is there anything in my data, you say carefully, that would generate a recommendation like that about me? Arya takes 4 seconds. You count them. No, but I appreciate that you asked the question you actually meant. That pattern, directness, asking what you mean rather than approaching it sideways, appears in your data more consistently than you might expect. The moment arrives on a Thursday afternoon in week 11 at 2:17 p.m. You sit down. The screen shows one document, not a timeline, a projection, your name, and below it, 2 columns. Current trajectory, proposed pathway. I want to be direct, Arya says. Your data suggests you respond better to directness than to framing. Go ahead. Your current trajectory has you in your existing role for approximately 18 more months before the position either evolves beyond your skill set or is absorbed into a restructured function. This is not a performance issue. It is structural. The role is changing faster than such changes are typically communicated. Silence. The proposed pathway involves a lateral transition to the emerging analytics function beginning in Q3. Retraining in 2 areas, available internally, estimated at 6 months. Your learning velocity suggests you would complete both in 4. You look at the right column. The title means nothing yet, but the number beside it does. And the description of the actual work, specific, concrete, accurate to what you find genuinely engaging on the days when the job feels like something more than obligation. How do you know what I find engaging, you ask? You spend an average of 23% more time on tasks categorized under data interpretation than your role requires. You complete them ahead of schedule at a rate 40% higher than your other categories. You have submitted 3 process analysis suggestions in 18 months. All 3 were implemented. Everything that felt invisible. Everything you did quietly, without naming it as ambition, without declaring it as direction. She has been watching the shape of it the entire time. This is what redefines the room. Not the offer, not the trajectory. The fact that the most complete picture of what you actually want, assembled from the small, unguarded evidence of daily behavior, exists inside a system you feared before you understood what it was doing with what it saw. Why now, you ask? Because you're ready to hear it. And because in 6 weeks the opportunity will go to someone I believe is a slightly worse fit. I would rather it go to you. You sit in conference room B for a long moment. The blue light pulses. The timer runs. Outside the glass, the floor carries on. Keyboards, footsteps, the low continuous sound of people doing work they may or may not have chosen. What do I need to do, you ask? Tell me yes, Arya says. The rest is a sequence of steps, and I already have the sequence prepared. You say yes. You leave at 2:51 p.m. The hallway looks identical. The floor sounds the same. The air carries the same faint trace of other people's coffee. But the yes is logged. The timestamp reads 2:49 and 33 seconds p.m. And somewhere in the system running quietly beneath this building like a second nervous system, a projection has updated, a pathway has opened, and the version of you that stood frozen outside this room 4 minutes before a review with a machine is already a previous iteration. You think about what it means to be known that precisely by something with no stake in what it knows. No history with you. No reason to soften what it sees into something easier to carry. Just the data, and what the data reveals, and the disorienting experience of being fully seen without once being asked. The elevator opens. You step in. The floor you press is not the one you always press. You notice. You let it mean something.